You've probably heard the word autism dozens of times, but what have you actually been told about it? Because there's a huge difference between recognizing the label and truly understanding what life is like for someone on the autism spectrum. And that difference can completely change the way you relate to the people around you. The truth is, most people still carry a single, limited, and often inaccurate image of autism. And that comes at a cost, both for those who are diagnosed and for those who live alongside them. What no one tells you is that the autism spectrum is vast, complex, and full of nuances that go far beyond what you see in films or on social media. There are profiles with extraordinary talents, others with invisible challenges, some with intense sensory overload, and others with subtle social difficulties that go undiagnosed for years. In this content, you'll discover what medical manuals rarely explain in human terms, and why understanding each profile may be the most important step towards ensuring real autonomy and quality of life for those you care about. Classic autism. When we talk about the autism spectrum, classic autism is often the first profile that comes to mind. But very few people truly understand what it means to live with heightened sensory perception. Imagine walking into a supermarket and hearing every trolley, every side conversation, and every car horn outside, as if they were all at maximum volume at the same time. That's not an exaggeration, sometimes it's the daily reality for many people. And understanding this changes everything about how we relate to them. While the typical communication and a strong reliance on routine aren't stubbornness or defiance. They are anchors of safety in a world that can feel overwhelmingly chaotic. When the structure of the day suddenly changes, anxiety spikes. What may seem like an overreaction is, in reality, a legitimate response to overload. Understanding this opens the door to far more effective support strategies. And that's exactly where real change begins. Asperger's syndrome. If you've ever spent time with someone with Asperger's syndrome, you may have noticed something curious. They can talk for hours about dinosaurs, astronomy, or chess with a level of depth that would impress any expert, yet completely freeze in a simple hallway conversation. Social interaction works like a foreign language that was never formally taught, and the unspoken rules of human interaction, like knowing when to stop talking or recognizing irony, don't come naturally. It's like trying to play a game without ever having seen the rule book. What many people don't realize is that these challenges don't erase the extraordinary talents that often accompany this profile. Names like Temple Grandin and Elon Musk are often associated with Asperger-like traits, precisely because their focused, analytical minds can become a powerful advantage in the right context. The key lies in multidisciplinary support, building social bridges without suppressing what makes that person unique. And it's this delicate balance that leads us to the next profile: pervasive developmental disorder. If you've ever tried to fit someone into a box and realized it simply didn't work, you'll understand pervasive developmental disorder. This profile combines mixed characteristics of the autism spectrum, a bit of communication difficulty, some social challenges, a sensitivity here, a rigidity and routine there, without fitting perfectly into any single diagnosis. It's like being fluent in several languages, but not a native speaker in any of them. Today, this diagnosis has been absorbed into the broader concept of the autism spectrum, reinforcing a fundamental truth. Autism isn't a straight line. It's a kaleidoscope. Each person carries a unique combination of challenges and strengths. Trying to force a rigid label can do more harm than good when it comes to quality of life and healthy neurodevelopment. Recognizing this diversity is the first step towards offering support that truly makes sense. And, speaking of changes across development, the next profile may surprise you. Childhood disintegrative disorder. Imagine watching your child learn to speak, make friends, and play creatively. And then, between the ages of 2 and 10, seeing those abilities simply disappear. Childhood disintegrative disorder is one of the rarest and most impactful conditions within the autism spectrum, precisely because regression happens after a period of apparently typical development. For families, it can feel as though the ground has suddenly disappeared beneath their feet. Communication, behavioral control, and social skills that took so much effort to build can regress significantly, increasing anxiety both for the child and for those around them. That's why multidisciplinary support, involving neurologists, speech therapists, occupational therapists, and psychologists, isn't a luxury. It's essential. And while this profile represents one of the most challenging extremes of the spectrum, the next one shows us that even preserved abilities come with their own invisible challenges. High-functioning autism. At first glance, someone with high-functioning autism may seem completely normal. And that's exactly where the greatest challenge lies, because their cognitive abilities are preserved, or even above average. They often learn to mask their difficulties with remarkable efficiency. Like an actor who has memorized the social script so well that no one notices the immense effort behind every interaction. But beneath that performance, sensory overload and anxiety quietly build up. The challenges in social communication and sensitivity to changes in environment or routine are still there, just less visible. And that often leads to a lack of proper support, directly affecting long-term neurodevelopment and quality of life. Recognizing that someone can be on the spectrum and still appear highly functional doesn't reduce their needs. If anything, it demands an even more attentive and empathetic perspective. And speaking of needs that often go unnoticed, the final profile may be the most misunderstood of all: pathological demand avoidance, PDA. Asking a child with PDA to tidy their room might seem simple, until you realize that even a small request can trigger such intense anxiety that the response comes in the form of refusal, avoidance, or emotional shutdown. Pathological demand avoidance is a profile within the autism spectrum where any demand, even everyday ones, is perceived by the nervous system as a real threat to autonomy and control. It's not laziness. It's not manipulation. It's neurology. Rigid, authority-based approaches tend to make things worse, while flexible, empathetic strategies that preserve a sense of choice make all the difference. Well-aligned multidisciplinary support, including therapists familiar with PDA and trained educators, can completely transform the quality of life of both the child and their family. And now, with this final profile explored, we have a much clearer map. We've come this far together. And now the question is, what are you going to do with all of this? Understanding the different profiles within the autism spectrum isn't just an intellectual exercise. It's an invitation to look around with more empathy, more patience, and, most importantly, more awareness. How many people do you know who might be silently struggling with sensory overload, anxiety around simple demands, or social interactions that have never quite made sense to them? And how many of those people never received the right support, simply because no one recognized what they were going through? Knowledge only transforms when it leaves the screen and enters real life. So ask yourself, is there someone in your family, your workplace, or your school who could benefit from a more attentive perspective and proper support? Are you willing to be the person who makes a difference before the diagnosis comes, or even after it does? The quality of life for those on the autism spectrum depends directly on how many people around them choose to understand before judging, to accept before correcting, and to support before demanding. If this content sparked something in you, a reflection, a memory, a desire to act, then it has fulfilled its purpose. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss any future content. Because every week, we bring you information that truly matters about neurodevelopment, autonomy, and quality of life. Because at the end of the day, understanding others is always the first step towards transforming the world around you.